Today is Lag Baomer, usually a day of great rejoicing. It's traditionally known as the day when Rabbi Akiva's students stopped dying, a day when death stopped and life began anew. Unfortunately, this year that process has been reversed as life turned to death. The joy of this day vanished as we witnessed the awful tragedy in Meron yesterday, which took the lives of over 45 people, including children. In the midst of great festivities, we were struck with what some are saying is the worst peacetime tragedy in Israeli history. It's a powerful statement. Our hearts go out to all those who are connected to the victims and to all the communities suffering through this loss and to all of Am Yisrael, a nation that mourns these painful deaths. I can only hope that our words of Torah today will be a merit for the neshamos of those who died, a merit for our broken world, a merit for those families still looking for their loved ones, and a merit for all those who need refuah. Although the day of Lag Baomer is associated with Rabbi Akiva and his students, it's more well known as the yahrzeit of the great Tana, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. It's a day on which we celebrate the amazing volumes of Torah brought into this world by this holy sage. There's also a tradition that this is the day when he exited the cave in the famous story recorded in the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us that in the time of the Roman occupation of the land of Israel, and the time after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, three rabbis were discussing the relative merits of the Roman Empire, of their Roman occupiers, their Roman oppressors, the Roman government that ruled the land at the time. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the one sage who spoke out against the Romans, claiming that even the good that they did in building the infrastructure of Israel was really for their own wicked purposes. His treasonous words were reported to the Romans. In order to escape certain death at the hands of the Romans, Rabbi Shimon and his son Eliezer were forced into hiding in a cave for 12 years. While in the cave, Hashem provided them with food and water, and they studied Torah day and night in a fashion more intense, perhaps, than anyone else on the earth could have. At the end of 12 years, Eliyahu Hanavi notified them that the edict of the Romans had been nullified. It was safe to come out. The Gemara says that on the day they left the cave, they were on such a high spiritual level. When they saw people engaged in physicality in the world, people engaged in mundane affairs, people planting or harvesting in the fields, fire emerged from their eyes and burnt up anything in sight. Kol makom shenosnin einehem miyad nisraf. Wherever they looked, it was burnt up in fire. Hashem got very upset with their behavior and sent them back into the cave for another year. La'achriv olami yitzasem, says to them, you came out to destroy my world. That's why you learned Torah. That's why I let you out. That's why the edict of the Romans is gone, so you could come and destroy my world. Chizru l'maraschem. Go back to your cave. You can't be in the world right now. You have more to learn. When they exited the next time, 1 year later, they saw the very same world. But this time noticed an elderly man running to greet the Shabbos with two hadassim, two myrtle branches in his hand, one for Zachar, one for Shamor. They were appeased and able to reconcile with the mundane activities of the world. There is more depth and more lessons in every single detail of this amazing story than perhaps any other story in Shas. There are volumes that one could say about the power of this story, about the lessons of this story, about the reasons why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was appeased the second time he left the cave. What's the symbolism of the elderly man? What's the symbolism of Shamor, V'Zachor, of the Hadassim? So much to discuss, and I know we've spoken about some of those details in the past. Today I would like to share a new insight into the story. While most people focus on the second exit of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai from the cave and why he was appeased, today I would like to focus on the first and share an insight from Rav Kook that I think can prove to be beneficial for all of us as we navigate our own disappointments and our own experiences with the things we are less fond of in the world. Rav Kook in Ein Hayah's commentary to Masechah Shabbos, Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, where this story is found, said that Rabbi Shimon mistakenly believed that ein kan makom lipsharos, letikunim lemechza l'shlish u'l'ravia, ki'im mechika gedola al kol sidarim hahavim. He believed that when it came to Kedusha, there is no compromise. There is no small fixes. There is no half a fix and a third a fix and a little better than it was yesterday. Mechika gadol al kol hasidarim. The only thing you can do is wipe it all out and start all over. V'chol hadvarim hatovim shelo ba'u likuyim v'chasirim mechusim ba'anan shel sichlus v'rishad shetzarech chidush me'ikar hayesod. There is no fixing because even the good is tempered with bad. There's no such thing as fixing when it comes to Kedusha. You have to uproot everything and start all over. Ad sheyamod hayesod hakedusha v'atara elyona, until the world can stand on the pillars of ultimate Kedusha, of the highest level of Kedusha. According to Rav Kook, Rav Shimon's perspective upon first exiting the cave was that in order to infuse Kedusha, holiness, into the world, you need to destroy that which is mundane and make space for Kedusha. You need to get rid of that which is bad and replace it with that which is good. Rabbi Shimon's perspective was that when it comes to Kedusha, there is no partial fixes. There is no partial success. There's no partial accomplishment. It's all or nothing. He believed that when it comes to Kedusha, you need to tear everything down that lacks Kedusha, lacks holiness, and start all over. Hashem couldn't stomach this. Hashem says, L'hachriv olami yitzas. This is not the purpose of why I put human beings in the world. It's not the purpose of Kedusha. It's not why you left the cave. And he called them back to the cave because he needed them to understand that this was not the right approach for imbuing Kedusha into the world. Hashem needed them to understand that even if their desires were pure, even if their ideas of bringing Kedusha into the world were right, their method was wrong. Their process was flawed. Their philosophy was gravely mistaken. Hashem wanted them to understand that the venture of Kedusha is not one that is all or nothing. It is not one that involves a momentary, instantaneous transformation. Boom, the world is gone, the world's rebuilt. It's not one that happens overnight. It's not one that destroys, but one that creates. It's not one that tears down, but one that builds up. Hashem wanted them to understand that, as Rav Kook says, Dafka mikol hara ve'achir hazeh tetzeh ha'ora hayoser shlema. The best light, the purest light, the holiest light comes not from pure Kedusha you infuse into the world, but actually the holiest, highest light comes dafka from the places that are bad, comes from the places that are ugly, comes from the places that are sullied, from the places that are mundane. From there, when you see Kedusha rise, that's the highest Kedusha. Sarich dafka im ha-Kedusha Yona laredes ad omek shel shiflus hachayim. To achieve the highest Kedusha, says Rav Kook, says Hashem to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, you have to go to the lowest places of life, to the biggest disappointments, to the most mundane. L'kaimam k'fim shehem, to accept them for what they are, u'lezakcham la'at la'at, and purify them a bit at a time, ad sheyaleh el mashe noad lahem, until they rise to their true destiny. Hashem wanted them to understand that in order to achieve good, you don't need to get rid of all the bad. Rather, you need to find the good and let it emerge from within the bad itself. Kedusha can be found anywhere and everywhere. If you look for it, you cultivate it, and inspire it to come forward. The lesson to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one that has deep implications for us, and one that extends far beyond the narrow conversation of how to infuse Kedusha into the world, but rather it is a framework for how to think about life in general, of how to think about the things that we disagree with, how to think about the people we disagree with, how to think about our disappointments in life. When we see something wrong in the world, when we see something wrong in any given situation, we don't just get rid of it all and start over. We don't throw away the baby with the bathwater, as they say. We look for the good, we keep the good, and slowly, slowly sift away the bad. When we see something we don't like in the world, when something or somebody does something we don't approve of, when we feel misaligned with a person or a place or an institution, we don't just jump ship, throw it all out, and start all over again. We experience disappointment. Of course we do. But when we experience those disappointments with someone or feel wronged by someone, we don't just walk away and start something new. We don't just reject. We try to redeem and to reshape and to rebuild. When we see things that are not the way they are supposed to be, we take our thoughts and our ideas and our values and our perspectives and hope that slowly, they'll have an impact and elevate. We patiently mold and shape and push so that we find the sparks of goodness even amidst that which we don't like, and allow those sparks to bubble to the surface so that they come to define our experience. The discrepancy between the way Rav Shimon mistakenly related to the parts of the world he disapproved of and the way Hashem wants us to relate to those parts of the world that we disapprove of is perhaps captured by the main symbol of this day of Lag Baomer, fire. Rav Shimon's fire was fast and furious. It was immediate. It was destructive. It was meant to rid the world of that which he didn't accept so that he could start over. We commemorate the day by building bonfires. Our bonfires are anything but fast. They take time to build. They emerge slowly. We have to collect all the right kinds of twigs and newspaper and kindling and build up to the bigger logs until it's a big kind of teepee. We start small with a spark towards the bottom and hope that every layer catches and rises further and further, slowly, one step at a time. Our fires take the small sparks and bring them all together into one big flame that provides light and heat and entertainment and beauty. Our bonfires of Lag Baomer are not the fires that tear down, but the fires that rise up. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was terribly disappointed with the world. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was terribly disenfranchised by its population. He tried to resolve it incorrectly, and Hashem showed him a better way. Hashem showed him how to go to any place, even devoid of any goodness, and purify it and better it and find the sparks that can lead to a more perfect outcome and work hard to bring them out. As we see the bonfires today, whether in real life, in Silver Spring, or on Zoom, or in pictures from Israel, from other places in the world, we should try to imagine ourselves finding the sparks of goodness and working hard, even at the lowest moments of life, even amidst the greatest disappointments we experience, to bring them forth, and by doing so, help to redeem the world in the exact way that Hashem wanted us to. Wish you all Shabbat Shalom, a healthy, happy, peaceful Shabbat ahead.